All right, welcome to episode 3. We've done 3. We're establishing a pattern every Sunday evening. I'm going to record this podcast, push it out Monday morning for your weekly consumption, and then hopefully you've started seeing some of the short clips to, give you a shorter form of a way to kind of consume and hopefully take some value from our material and what our company is putting out. And so this week it's a solo podcast. It's going to be a quick one. Last week was a little bit of a long one, so I appreciate if you took the time to listen to the 50 minutes worth of content. Me and Rory went over the ideal ways to recruit, the challenges that we face, and kind of gave some insight and hopefully some good advice and to how maybe you could approach or incorporate some of those ideas into your recruiting practices. But today I want to take the time to talk about something that I've noticed in this line of work over the last 2 years, and hopefully encourage you / give you some tips and or advice to help overcome those challenges that I've seen happen more often than not. And that's the idea of, as teachers, and I'm not even going to speak to UIL academic coaches, but as teachers, we have become the worst and notorious about advocating for ourselves and or telling our administrators or teammates or support staff what we need, whether that goes from purchasing resources and asking the administrator for money, or if that comes from team lesson planning and telling and communicating with our co-teachers what we need in terms of lesson plan and support, and whether that's vertically or horizontally, or if that's even just the janitorial staff, not changing out the trash or leaving dirty rooms in the morning and, forgetting to take out certain boxes, and we just do it. And, we as teachers try and end up wearing every hat that we possibly can wear, and we try and do a job with as little to minimal resources as we have. We try and, do as much work to even cover 1 to 2 to 3 positions worth of roles, or we end up just taking things on ourselves instead of voicing and advocating for some help and or accountability, even, if you will. And so, in a lot of these conversations that I have with coaches, there's a general, and this is really not even UIL academic coaches, there's a general timidness to asking and to saying telling somebody what we need from them and or from our administrator in terms of resources or work or assistance or what we're willing to do. And I think that's one of the biggest things that leads to, especially as UIL academic coaches, leads to burnout, is that coaches are constantly not verbalizing or advocating for themselves in terms of what they need. And so we end up doing more with less, and we try and cover so many extra events, and we try and do it for the kids and at the sacrifice of our own health, our own happiness, our own family. And I just don't think it has to be that way. And we don't have to wear all of those burdens on our shoulders. And, I love the hero aspect and that attitude of teachers, but the reality is we are not superhuman heroes. We need to advocate for the things that we need, and we need to vocalize the assistance, the resources, the materials, the physical bodies that we need to do our job and to do our job well. All right? We're not paid well enough to do multiple jobs. Nobody's going to argue with that. We also are not paid or asked to do certain jobs without any resources or materials. Because I can tell you this, your administrator is going to conferences and spending tens of thousands of dollars on tools and resources and software and things that will make their life easier. And it's not a negative thing. It's just a reality that they see the budgets, they see the opportunities, and they see the need for them to do their job well or do their job at all, and they go and get what they need, and they're empowered that way. And we need to advocate and expect to be empowered as well. That doesn't mean that we're always going to be told yes, but if we don't vocalize our needs and we don't describe those in a professional way, in a problem-solving manner, then we're never going to get the assistance and or rescue from the burnout and the crazy year that we all had. And, even for myself, I sit here and preach it, but there's times where I just take it on. But I've learned to ask, and I'm an asker. But I've also learned and feel like that's a skill that I've acquired in learning how to approach and how to ask and when to ask. And so that's what I'm going to kind of share with you of vocalizing what you need, and here are some tips of how to get what you need from your administrator and or the team around you, and maybe some approach guidance, if you will, on some key terms and some phrasing and some solution-oriented approaches that I think will help guide teachers and coaches into a direction that gets them to the point where the outcome is more likely or more probable than not. And I think a lot of the times the issue with not getting what we need comes from A, not asking, and B, not being real strategic in the way we ask. So when we're going to go through top 5 ways, make it simple, the top 5 ways that you can help yourself and or advocate for yourself to get what you need to make you successful, right? I want you to take this approach and think of it in terms of, how can I set myself up to be successful? Your career can hang in the balance about you having what you need. I'll use a sports analogy, but a first-round draft pick, number 1 recruit for 1.1 overall in the draft quarterback goes to a team that has poor coaching, no wide receivers, no support cast. It's going to be really hard for him to be successful, even if he's the best quarterback in the league, even if he has the most talent and he's the hardest working. If he doesn't have the cast or the resources or the coaching or anything around them, he's already set up for failure. So no different than rock star, hero, best speech and debate coach, or best UIL coordinator, or best literary criticism coach in the state. If you have no support, no resources, and you don't vocalize that, you're setting your own self up for failure. And I feel like we all do that to some extent. And so that's one of the themes that I wanted to bring out into this conversation and discuss in a little more detail. So let's get into that. That's my soapbox. So we'll talk more granular stuff here for a second. But if you don't take anything else out of the rest of this, just advocate for yourself. Do the most that you can to set yourself up for success, because I promise you, your kids will be more successful. Your co-staff will be more successful. Your administration will be more successful when you are more successful. All right? So the first thing that we have to do is clearly and directly communicate our needs. Okay? This is number 1. Obvious, slap in the face, everybody knows it, but we don't do it. We don't clearly and directly communicate our needs. This is true in all facets of our life, right? When you think about any kind of issues with your peers, your friends, coworkers, leaders, spouse, a lot of the issues we have when we are not successful or not happy or not working cohesively is because we haven't clearly and directly communicated our needs. So first part of that is figuring out what you need. You need to be able to say, here are the stresses, here are the problems, here are the issues. Now, how and what are the solutions so that next year, right? We're in May, so this is a great time to do this. Next year, I don't want to have to live this life again. I don't want to have to redo this problem every year of my life. So what can I do? What can I acquire? What can I learn? What can I change infrastructure, as far as infrastructure goes, to make this better? So don't assume that your leader knows the answers to your problems. And if we're just keeping it real, as teachers, we don't really like the administrator to be all up in our room and in our business. So if you don't want the administrator to be in your room constantly and seeing your day-to-day, day in and day out, which nobody really does. I haven't met a teacher that really loves the administrator to do walk-ins and pop-ins every day. They're not going to know. They're not going to know what you need or what your struggles are unless you clearly and directly communicate it. We don't want them in our day-to-day, but we want them to know what our problems of the day-to-day are. Then we have to be the ones to tell them, and we have to be the ones to ask for more support and more resources. Now, we'll get into the strategy of how to do that, but the first thing to do is to literally figure out and come up with a plan and or solution for what you need. And if you don't know what you need, then you need to go talk to your administrator or your department head or whatever you think is appropriate for the issue and discuss with them and say, here's the issue I'm having this year, and I'm really trying to brainstorm and figure out what can we do so that I don't have to live this life again, okay? Now, you have to be, here's one of the reasons why we don't do this is because you have to be ready for the accountability that comes with that. Is the answer purchasing a resource? Is the answer buying a piece of software? Or is it getting more tables and chairs? Or is it just improving your behavior management in the classroom? That's where the accountability and the honesty has to come in here. So I'll say that with a grain of salt. You have to be ready for the co-teachers, the leaders, the administrators to look to try and solve this issue without external money instead of just throwing money at it. And that's a responsible thing to do, okay? So clearly and directly, try that again. Clearly and directly communicate your needs, all right? If you haven't done that, if you haven't sent the email, if you haven't scheduled a meeting, if you haven't had that conversation, do it. And even if the answer is, hey, I want to help you with what you have, if it solves the problem, then that's the whole point, right? The whole point is to solve the issue. The whole point isn't to avoid getting better at our job. It's not to avoid becoming better at classroom management or becoming better at rigor in the classroom or whatever the challenge is. The point is to solve the issue. And as long as you approach these conversations with the idea that you want to solve the issue, then I will bet my salary that you are going to get support on what you need. And if you don't, then we'll talk about that another day. But if you still don't get support and the solution for the problem you need, then either A, your administrator doesn't think it's a problem, or B, I'm sorry, you just have a really poor administration. All right. So the second step is to document and present the solution in terms of pros and cons, right? Expenses and income. Okay. If you need to purchase something or you need to acquire something, whether it's you go to a training or you buy a resource to help you manage all of the hats you have to wear, then you need to break that down in terms of exactly the value and what you needed and the problem it solves. A lot of times, and I did this early in my career, we just ask for, a generic blanket saying, hey, I need to purchase these speech and debate resources. And that's it. I need $1,000 to buy to send the kids to camp. And I don't really discuss or have any kind of breakdown as to why or comparative or any kind of sales pitch as to how that will benefit the team, the school, the children, right? And so we just kind of throw it out there and we make two mistakes of A, thinking that our administration has any understanding as to what that means, and B, not presenting it in a sales way. You have to persuade and sell the school to allocate new resources or to move money from one place to another, and you have to describe why that's important. And a lot of times you can latch on to anything that the administration has said or the school says. They have some sort of motto, some sort of mission statement. Anytime you can align with that overarching mission statement or anything that your principal pushes and discusses in terms of, publicity. Schools almost always are pushing some kind of social media presence to like positive PR for the district. That's great. Lean into that. Find that school motto, that mission statement, that PR presence. Align with that mission statement, show the benefits for the students, and provide it as a solution. Okay, that's the key thing through all of this is everything has to be from the purpose of solving the problem, not identifying the problem. Okay, telling them about a problem, complaining about a problem, griping about a problem is not solution based. And that gets administrators and people to shut off, and they become counselors. They say like, all right, I'm just going to listen. They're going to go back to the room and I won't hear about it again the rest of the year. Because that's what happens most of the time, that we've trained administrators to just listen to us, almost kind of like officials to a coach. They have no intention of changing the call or doing anything about it because they're just griping. They're just complaining. They're just vocalizing. And maybe that's all you need. Maybe you just need an event session and that was part of the solution. But if you actually want resources, if you actually want to grow your team, to get more money in your budget, to acquire training or knowledge or go to an event or conference, you've got to document and present the case as a sales pitch of why this aligns with mission, why this is necessary, why this benefits the school district. Doesn't mean you're going to get yes every time, but it's going to increase the probability. So, second is seek out alliances and build support, okay? And this doesn't mean like ambush your administrator with 6 coaches and 6 teachers that all need the same thing. But I think that generally saying that this will benefit more individuals, that more teachers are also facing this problem, and this is not an issue like an isolated or individual issue, can go a long way in that sales pitch. So when you come at a solution base and you've done the work to talk to these other teachers and or coaches about their having the struggles and this is also preventing them from being successful, then you can understand the importance and the magnitude of what acquiring those resources wouldn't just affect one classroom of students or one team, but it might affect a group of students or a group of teachers. And pro tip, if you start speaking to like teacher burnout, and there's a Charles Butts like survey about why teachers leave and teacher retention. There's some good statistics in there. I don't know how, you got to know your administrator, but start talking about how these teachers are burnt out and these teachers are struggling and they're frustrated, and you want to keep them there, especially if you're a UL coordinator where you have like responsible for other coaches. You can begin advocating for yourself in terms of through keeping your team together and your other coaches. So advocate in a way that talks to the pain points that the administration might see as well, which is retention. Hiring, staffing is becoming one of the biggest headaches for administrators. And not that it hasn't been in the past, but it's only getting harder. So advocate, seek out the support, and then get more additional voices that agree and say that would also solve their problems. So now you go from advocating for yourself, specifying exactly what you need in a laid out business plan, right? Sales pitch, and then magnifying that or multiplying that, increasing the magnitude of impact on these resources by showing how it could help more than one teacher, or more than one teacher is also struggling with this. And that becomes, now you become a leader in this area because you saw the problem. It's not a unique problem to you. You went out and found the solution, and now you're advocating for the solution. Like, at no point is this selfish. At no point is this you asking for something for yourself. This is you seeing an issue, solving an issue, fixing an issue, right? Approach everything from the idea of, I have a problem, I identify the problem, I find the solution to the problem, I apply the solution to the problem, I make my administrator's job easier. I make the school look better. I make the kids more successful. I make myself more successful. I decrease my burnout and I decrease my stress levels to a manageable level, lack of a better word. So, in that is always about proposing the solutions and being proactive, okay? So we're going to focus on the proactive part last. If you are doing this all in reactive, you wait till the house is burned down and then complain because the administrators didn't put smoke alarms in the house, that's reactivity. That's not proactive in terms of seeing the problem and finding a solution. You cannot wait until all of your UIL coaches quit and you have no staffing to come up and say, I needed resources. Nobody had any help or training to do anything, and so they all quit. Well, now we're sitting there with a burnt down house complaining about smoke alarms, okay? You see the issue ahead of time, be proactive about it, okay? Don't wait till everything is a mess and then now ask for a solution to a problem that now you're not actually trying to solve the problem, you're trying to rebuild, and you're trying to build better than it was before. That's harder. That requires more resources. That is a tougher sell, right? When you total your car, they don't rebuild that car. They go buy a new one, right? And that's more expensive, okay? It's a bigger pain in the butt. So don't wait till your car's totaled. Do the oil changes, repair, put new tires on, okay? Small request to keep it running, to keep it good, okay? So be proactive, identify the problems ahead of time, and seek those solutions ahead of time. And then, if in the worst case they say no, and then you ask for the smoke detectors, the house burns down. Not that it's a great feeling, but at that point, there's nothing else you could have done. And you're not sitting there frustrated you're going to be frustrated, but you're not sitting there with the accountability on your hands. And then you can go to the administrator and be like, please, I want to build this back the correct way. Here's the way that I think this needs to be done. Can we do it this way? If you still don't get the resources you need at that point, then, maybe there's not an alignment of goals between what you want to do in your career and the goals you have as an individual and a professional and the goals that the school has as an institution. So sometimes you just need to find the right institution that aligns with your goals. Okay? So if there's not a lot of support for UIL academics and your administrators won't support it and they won't support it and they won't support it and you want to be a state champion UIL academic coordinator or spelling coach or whatever it is, and they have no interest in you being a state championship UIL academic coach, then there's plenty of districts that do. And I don't love that idea, and maybe that's not a solution for everyone, but the reality is that problem and that situation does exist. So the second is understanding that's the fifth. The last one is understanding how the organization functions. Know your business office, know your budgets, know as much information about the money in that school as you can, okay? It's all public record, okay? Like there's this belief that certain things are hidden. I say that with a grain of salt. Understand that if you start doing a public records request, it can look funny, okay? Don't go to the board meeting and start asking for public records requests. That looks like you're trying to subvert the normal chain and process, and you're trying to got you and get your administration in trouble. So don't go to the board meeting doing public record requests. But what I say is that if you ask your administrators about dollars and budget and try and understand how the school allocates their money and where you might be able to get more funding or get more resources, or is there any money left over at the end of the year, this is what I've told, I think, 20, 30 people here in the last month is go talk to them. I promise you, I've been worked in 3 districts across 12 years, and I don't know that there hasn't been money. Maybe it's not a large sum, but there has been some money left over in all these budgets at the end of the year, and that administrator has to decide what projects, what one-offs, what things do they want to do over the summer, and purchase that with. And if it's in a 199, if the money is in a 199 account, it can be spent on literally anything, right? Literally anything, okay? No strings attached. So those 199s, they may have to fill out some paperwork, dot their I's, cross their T's, but they can move money around in any of those 199s and spend them on anything that the school needs. Okay, I say anything, but anything that you would want to help make the school better, probably fine, okay? So understand how the process is, understand your gatekeepers, understand how your administrators work, and what are their goals, okay? Familiarize yourself with the company's procedures, aka the schools, and request the resources and the budget that you need. So, if you can't get the money right then from leftover funds, then you need to request more funds for next year, right? If you can't get leftover funds, request more funds. And you need to do that proactively. Don't wait till September when the new budget's out, because they did that budget back in April, maybe March. They do the new budget in March or April. You wait till September. You don't have any money. Now you're mad. And then you wait all the way till April and you forget about it because you were mad in September. And then it comes back the next September and you said, well, I still don't have any money. Well, the reality is that we're just mistiming. We're not understanding how the process works to best give us the chance to be successful, to best get what we need from the school. So vocalize that, understanding how it works also can relieve a lot of frustration, because a lot of times when I was most frustrated with financial decisions was when I didn't really understand how the whole process worked. So that's really the top 5 key ways that I'm going to advocate for you to advocate for yourself. And that's not just for UIL coaches, but everything for teachers. If you need curriculum, if you need pencils, if you need anything, if you are having issues and that like in your classroom that don't stem from you just being a better teacher, right? I mean, like I obviously am guilty of that as well. You know, there are days where my classroom management is great and there's other days where it is not, okay? But if you need resources or training or you need help or you don't understand how to do the accommodations or you haven't learned about IEPs or you want to purchase UIL academic resources, which, you know, I'm biased, buy them, I sell them. But the reality is as a whole, ask for what you need. And if you don't get 100% of it, maybe you get half of it. Maybe you're going to get something. And as long as you approach it from a problem-solving perspective, so you are not complaining or solving, you're proactive, you seek support so that you're not just focused on what helps you, but how it could help the district and how it can help the students. And then you understand the processes laid out so that you time and speak the language of the administration. You time it to where it's possible for them to do it, aka when budgets come out. You propose a solution, you be proactive, and then you speak the language of the administrator. I promise you, you're going to be successful so many more times than not, because you were strategic in how you approached it. And, you know, I talk about this all the time. The attitude and focus of a problem solver is to say, how do I get from point A to point B? Okay? So many people are focused on, I should be able to go straight, and they should clear out everything in front of me so that if I just have to walk straight down the path, and if there's a roadblock, I stand right here and I wait until and I search the problem to move. That's not problem solving. Okay? Problem solving is doing what's necessary to get through the path to get to the point that you want to be. Okay? If you want to climb the mountain, if you want to be successful, if you want to win UIL Academic State, if you want to be a state championship coach, it's not going to be a straight path. You're going to have to be willing to jump the hurdles, step in the mud, go off the beaten trail, ask for help, and do all the things to get around all the roadblocks to success, right? I know you've seen the pictures and the graphs of what success looks like, so I'm telling you, this is one of the ways to get over the hurdles and to be creative and find solutions. But advocate for yourself. Your team needs it. Your students need it. They need you. They need you at 100%, and they need you fully equipped. Don't show up for the kids unequipped. So that was my soapbox, and that was my rant for this time. I kept it under 30 minutes, so that's a win. I hope that you enjoyed that. As always, you know, like us at Pocket Coach Academy are just trying to make speech and debate coaches, UIL academic coordinators, journalism coaches, all the above, accounting coaches, lit crit. We want to make your life easier, and that's really all our goal is. You know, it's not all altruistic in the idea that, you know, I have 4 sons, so we are a for-profit business, but our product, our profits, our process is designed to make your life less stressful and to make you more successful in the classroom. So if you think we could do that, if you think that some more resources could help your year, just check us out. Send me an email, find me on Facebook, shoot me a message, and let's talk. I hope you have a great week. Enjoy the end of the school year, and let's finish strong.